Hi, I'm Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation. I'm also the podcast host of Invest in Her and an award-winning producer, author, and TEDx speaker. Our show, Invest in Her, features phenomenal female founders and funders. As you know, women receive less than 2% of venture capital funding. Our series is about accelerating the funding of women by connecting them to funding resources. Let's meet today's guest. Today's guest is a four-time founder startup champion, and she hosts Startup Live, which is a very fun and entertaining show chock full of great advice for startups. I want to welcome to the show the host, Ande Lyons. Hi, Ande. How are you?
Hey, Catherine. I am so delighted to be here. And hey, I love that we're switching the tables because I had the delicious experience of interviewing you on the Startup Life Live show. Everyone loved you and learned so much from your founder journey. And now I get to play the role of the guest this time. It's delicious.
Thank you. I have to say yours is one of the most fun shows I've been on. It's brilliant the way you do it. It's very entertaining and fun, and yet you get a lot of great advice and, bravo, kudos. And I want to mention that we did not color coordinate our tops for those who are watching the show today, but it looks like we did.
So good.
Pink and white stripes. We got it going on, right? Right, Ande?
We sure do. It's lovely. I love that serendipitous moment. What? Twinsies.
So you were just sharing with me, because I always like people to get to know the guests a little bit before we delve in. And you had mentioned you were born in Massachusetts and you're there now. So I'm like assuming you've been there all this time and, growing up there, whatnot. And no, you just shared with me, you've lived and visited like 33 other places. So
absolutely.
Yeah, how did that happen?
Oh my gosh. Well, back in the day, my dad worked for the telephone company. So we moved around New England a lot.
Right.
And then as an adult, my gosh, I was just always trying something new and living somewhere else. It wasn't enough just to visit. I ended up moving. And then when my husband and I had children, oh my gosh, we really screwed them up and moved them 5 times in 9 years.
Oh my gosh. So what are some of the highlights of where you've lived?
Oh, well, I love living in Charlottesville, Virginia. It was just so beautiful, horse country, and just that's when I really got to know hospitality. Come on over. I lived in Denver during my Wonder Bread years, where I grew in 12 different ways. That's an age thing, I know. But I lived there for about...
Unfortunately, I know that Wonder Bread thing. I grew up with it too. And by the way, I also grew up in Virginia, but closer to Washington, D.C. So not out near where you were, which is beautiful. But it's all beautiful. I was just in D.C. and I forgot really how incredibly beautiful it is.
Oh my gosh, those Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah Valley, the home of Thomas Jefferson, Virginia, the shoreline, it's just a gorgeous Commonwealth. And then, Denver, my gosh, I hiked every 14,000 foot peak. I had a whole, incredible experience there. We lived in Pacific Palisades for 2 years when we had our .com. Oh my gosh. I put duct tape on my car because I felt these people take their cars way too seriously here.
Well, so that now you just mentioned you had a startup there. So tell us, you had 4 startups. I know that you really help other startups, with everything, advice on investing and how to grow their company and whatnot. But you're working from experience. So you've had 4 successful startups. Tell me a little bit about the startups that you have, because I'm not aware of those.
Oh, well, listen, first of all, I just want to tell everybody, hello, my name is Ande. I've been unemployable since 1992. I tried to, go and get some gigs in between, but I got fired, and really entrepreneurship is where I thrive the best. And so, dabbling in a lot of different areas, but during the .com, I joined forces with my husband, and we had a phenomenal .com. College Broadcast was the name. We provided entertainment content to over 250 campuses. And so
I'm familiar with that. Yeah, I think I was doing some business with that, like getting programming on there and whatnot.
My gosh, Catherine, that would have been ideal. So this was 98 through 2000, and we raised over 8 million. And one of my favorite stories is that Bear Stearns, may they rest in peace, were coming in for $14 million. But when you are a founder and you raise capital and you get people on the board, you lose a lot of your voting capability, and you get influenced by other investors who are in. And we ended up turning it down because that was around the end of 1999, mid 1999, and everybody was darn cocky.
Yeah.
Okay. And why dilute further? We're going to be fine, right? We weren't.
Yeah, I remember that. I actually, for a couple minutes, worked with a company called mycity.com, and they were just blowing through millions in that .com boom when they just had so many millions flowing in. It does seem nowadays, maybe not so much since the change in the financial arena right now, but in the last few years, a lot of money flowing into venture capital. And
right. Well, what I learned from a guest I had on recently, Courtney from Recast Capital, explained to me the difference between the .com days versus today, which was in the .com, founders were just throwing out ideas, doing things. They weren't as buttoned up as they are today. So today you get a lot more training in how to pitch. You really understand your cap table. You're getting trained in governance. There's a lot of resources between accelerator programs or shows like mine, where people teach you those relevant things. You have a great opportunity, Catherine, where folks can learn how to prepare for angel investing or for angel investors. So, people are out there sharing resources and getting you buttoned up. We did not have that back then. And I'll tell you, the thing I always bring up is the launch parties were extravagant. And we were in Southern California, so they were really hot and amazing.
Yes. In Miami too. That's where I was. Yeah. People don't know the amount of money that was flowing into just like nonsense .coms. It was crazy.
And then
most of them were male, so they were getting all the money, because obviously the females weren't getting that kind of funding, which is, still the case,
Still the case. But I remember I got interviewed by Wired magazine, and I said, this culture was founded by young men sleeping on the couch, working 24/7. That is not family friendly. This is ridiculous. This is never going to be sustainable. And the other thing I took away from it was the fact that these founders were, again, so cocky. They would get picked up and purchased by a bigger company. And what did they do? They put their stock into the company that purchased them instead of quickly, diversifying their portfolio. So one minute they were high on the hog, and the next minute they were broke because they kept the money in the .com world. What a disaster.
Right. Well, your Startup Live has a lot of interesting guests like the one you just mentioned that bring a lot of information to the table for startups. And of course, your background in having done this 4 times.
Oh my gosh.
You bring a lot of great advice. I had told you I was going to ask you, what would be 4 or 5 pieces of advice you would give to our listeners who are either wanting to start a business right now, or maybe, level up a business that they've started?
Well, let's speak to the ones who are thinking of starting a business. When you think of dream team, Catherine, you think about your talent acquisition, who you're going to have on your team. And I'm telling you, the dream team is your attorney. It is your CPA, your accountant. It is your insurance broker. And it's your banker. These are the people who protect you, and you need to be protected. Do not go on legal Zoom, folks, for anything. I have horror stories of folks who just did, back of the napkin operating agreement, basically with a co-founder who decided to jump out, and then they've got 8% of that business for never doing anything. That's just a quick example. You need your attorneys to protect you, and everybody. A good bank out there, like Silicon Valley Bank, for example, they're going to give you the support and help give you the training that you need so that when you do grow and you're ready for investment or Series A, they're going to take care of you, make sure you get the introductions. Your accountant is going to make sure you always look great on paper and that you have your numbers nailed down. And then your insurance broker is going to make sure you've got all that liability insurance, because although I'm always telling people, you always win when you launch a business, no matter what happens. You don't want to get completely thrown into bankruptcy or in jail. So
Yeah.
get that
Hello.
dream team in place. And the
Right.
other thing, to the newbie founder folks who are thinking or on the fence about launching a business, you will win no matter what happens. You may find out it's not for you, entrepreneurship, where you're going to get so many skills that are going to level up who you are. You're going to become much more valuable back at a company that can hire you, or maybe you'll get picked up by a startup. Or if you are feeling the love for entrepreneurship, first business, second business, there's no guarantees. It's always about the possibility. So you start over, but you're going to be coming at a much higher level of awareness and understanding of what to do. Remember the PayPal guy? How many fails did he have? 4 fails, big fails, awful fails, and then he launched PayPal. So,
it was somebody, I forget which billionaire said this, but he said something like, you can have 7 losses and 1 win, and all anyone will remember is your 1 win.
that's
Because,
right.
if it's a unicorn and it's big, that's what they're going to remember. They're not going to remember that you had 7 losses, and they probably did have 7 duds before they
Right.
hit it. Yeah.
The other thing is, I want to make sure that whether you're a current founder or thinking about it, be really clear, become more self-aware about what success looks like for you.
Mhm.
Outside, people are going to say, unless you're a zebra or a unicorn, you're nothing to me, right? No, you decide, are you feeding your family? Yay. If you're feeding your family and maybe hiring people in the community or around the world, wonderful. If you're really into global domination, you have what it takes to go all the way like that, okay. But please don't be comparing yourself to all the other journeys out there. And especially not only, measuring your success and what that means to you as you evolve using your tape, but also do not compare, and make sure that your loved ones that are around you don't start sending you hate mail, because they love you for who you are. And it's so important with entrepreneurs. We get so hyper focused, we get so energized by our mission and our vision. If someone's in our way and they're not part of the solution, they best get out of the way, right? So you got to save time for those in your life and nurture those relationships, because the way the memes and mythology works around entrepreneurship, it's like, 3 years and I'm scaling and everything's great. No, you're often the 8 to 10 year overnight success. It will take time.
Right.
Don't rush, don't hurry. I mean, this is why you might want to be careful when you go to raise capital. Get angels on board. They care about the mission and vision. They're more holistic in their investments with you. They're in it for you, with you for a while. Whereas when you go into the venture capital world, your runway is going to get tinier and you're going to feel a lot more pressure for evolving. Again, if you're the person who was like, bring it on, I'm ready to scale to 100 employees and really nail it across the world, then great. Love it, scale, do your whole thing. But I want to caution everyone that we see these examples out there, Catherine, and they're not what most businesses are. A good, strong business can be 1 million, 10 million, 50 million, and that's a darn good run, and it's a great business.
Absolutely. Not everybody's meant for venture capital, for sure. I think our goal is just letting people know, if you are a company that would be great for venture capital, know what you're getting into and how to get into it. And B, if you are in a position to be a female investor in a venture capital fund, possibly started by women, since there's more of those now, then by all means, learn that, look into it, and become part of that solution, because we need more women investors, right, in the venture capital world. But venture capital might not be for your company, like you're saying. So many other options of how to get funding, angels and otherwise. It's why we did our e-course, 6 ways to fund your business, because you're not limited to venture capital. However, you might be the perfect company that would really thrive in venture capital. So I think it's just a matter of people understanding what the options are, how to access them, and which one is right for them, right?
Exactly. And make sure that you have the people around you who believe in your ability. People can teach you, people can coach you, but it's the folks who believe and just look at you and say, I know you're going to figure that out.
Yes.
Wow. That is so empowering, right,
I agree
Catherine?
with you. You seem like to me the kind of person would surround yourself with people that are very supportive of what you're doing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know it's hard, and family and friends are going to be watching you like it's a train wreck about to happen because entrepreneurship is not for them. They love you. They, of course, want the best for you, but it's like, ah,
Yeah. Yeah.
you've got to have
It's
people.
not for everybody. A lot of people thrive in corporate America, but most people, if they are an entrepreneur, find it hard to be in corporate America. And if you're one of those people and you're like busting at the seams, go start that company, right? But
That's
I
right.
loved your advice in the beginning of the show about getting that dream team around you to do it right. There are stories you hear about someone wrote it on a napkin and it all worked out, but they are so far and in between. It's not a good plan, right?
No, you wouldn't send your kid out and just let him go to any old doctor. You want a good, solid pediatrician,
Yeah.
say, with a good track record, or a really good vet for your dog, right, or cat.
The same
thing. You got to protect your dream.
So you got into entrepreneurship because, at the beginning of the show, you were like, I was unemployable. I became an entrepreneur. Was it really that you felt like you didn't want to work in corporate America, couldn't work in corporate America? You just said you just had a desire to start your business. Like, what made you decide to become an entrepreneur?
Thank you for asking this question, because I grew up in a home where that was just, what? Have your own business? Never.
Right.
So I had no role models. And frankly, I would just say I was a reluctant entrepreneur, meaning that I was not what investors would like to see: strong founder market fit, all these. I had none of that. Every business I had came out of the blue, it seemed. And then there I was running it and making it happen. I think what I have is that I'm just a super problem solver, an implementer, an executor. I know how to get stuff done. And so for me, in corporate America, folks, as one of my friends who was just a big HR person, she'd say to me, like, Andy, she'd run her finger down my body, we don't hire this. So I go, okay. But I think a lot of times it's because, I probably wanted to take charge and rule the world. But so this is how I found to do this and have a certain way of life that worked well for me. And I want to say too, I went on and had a food business, which is, I often say, as God is my witness, I'll never do anything with a shelf life again. But, you can find so much creative ways to bring products to market. So for example, I got certified as a woman-owned business through WeBank, the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, this gold standard for certifying women-owned businesses. And I got picked up by Aramark, Compass, Sodexo, all the food service companies who let me keep my margin. I didn't have to do all the games at the grocery stores and Whole Foods and everybody makes you play. There's no margin in that. And they just shipped me out everywhere. I was in so many corporate campuses, so many college campuses, hospitals. Dana-Farber Cancer Hospital here in Boston would buy it and give it out free to their cancer patients, my product, because it was so good. So I had a great 5-year run with that business, but things happen. My two of my primary products got wiped out agriculturally. And this is, again, people don't talk to you about this, but Mother Nature can really take you down. Right. And I thought, well, I'm about to scale into like what I call the Kellogg's form of production. I'll make that up. I was raising $250,000 at that point. And then my the current manufacturing facility I was using, got hit by lightning and burned to the ground. Wow. And then I was like, that stopped me in my tracks. And then, no kidding, 2 days later, my husband came home in the middle of the day. He'd been laid off. We had a 9 and a 7-year-old at home. And we were like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
It was just, could not recover from that. Just completely shut the business down. So I cried for months. And so did my customers.
Yeah, well, entrepreneurship is certainly not easy, but obviously you did bounce back. You are resilient. And in order to be an entrepreneur, you have to be resilient, right?
Right.
And now you help other entrepreneurs to flourish, right?
Absolutely. Here in Boston for 3 years, I ran a monthly pitch event here. So we would have 5 founders who had 99 seconds to pitch their value prop. We'd grab a couple of angels from the Boston startup ecosystem, and they'd give their feedback. It was just such a wonderful event. And I participate in a lot of accelerator programs so that when COVID hit, and being an extrovert who needs to be with people to get her batteries filled again, I thought, okay, I had been a live stream host and a podcast host since 2012, 2013. I said, I'm going to start a show, right? I'm going to continue to try to reach more founders that aren't in such heavily resourced areas like we have here in Boston, or like you have in LA or up in San Francisco. And then George Floyd was murdered. And I was part of a group where I was about 75 people, and I was one of 4 whites, I think, in the group. And I got just so much deeper understanding of the lack of amplification for diverse founders. And I said, okay, I'm going twice a week. I'm going to amplify diverse founder voices. And this is how I'm going to help. I'm going to try to reach folks, not just in the pockets in America where they what support, right? Zero, but also parts of the world that don't have what are investor questions or questions for investors? What are these documents, one pagers and pitch decks? What is the loan to value, LTV, CAC ratio? How do I calculate that? What's customer acquisition? All the things that we figure out here and get so much support on. I want to be sort of like an entertaining moment of grabbing these nuggets that you need to think about as a founder.
Right, right. So your show, Startup Live, provides all that information. And I think that's great. What a wonderful resource. And you always do it in an entertaining way. So where do people find Startup Live?
Okay, so it's Startup Life Live show, and you can just, wherever you see Ande Lyons, that's where it's going to be. So we're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, on the podcast as well, the Startup Life Live show. And I just want to tell people, we talk about the disasters. I have shared, my guests have shared the most horrific things that can happen to a business and how they got on the other side of it. So if you're feeling stuck, this is a great place to come. Feel less isolated and siloed, and see how other people have crawled through and gotten through the other side, even though they thought, gosh, it's done, put a fork in it. They got over it.
I love it. It is Startup Life Live. It's a fun show. It's an engaging show. It's a show filled with wonderful content and advice. Thank you for doing the show. And thank you for being our guest here today.
Thank you. And women, keep asking for that money. You can do it. It's out there for you.
Absolutely. You can find Ande Lyons, that's ANDE, and then LYONS for those just listening in on LinkedIn or on the other social media. You can, of course, find me, Catherine Gray, Invest in Her or She Angel Investors on all of the Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Please reach out to us. We're here to help you. That's why we do these shows, to provide you financial resources and how to connect. And if I could bottle up Andy's energy and positivity, I would, and I would sell it. We would sell it.
Well, you laugh yourself to keep from crying, right? It's a great journey.
Thank you so much for being on. Everybody, make it a great week. Remember to invest in her, invest in another woman. We're here to support each other. Make it a great day. Remember, if you're looking to launch a business or grow your business, check out our e-course, 6 Ways to Fund Your Business, available at sheangelinvestors.com.